Hey, everybody, and welcome to the People's Plant Investor webinar. I'm Robin Holt from Jigsaw Agency, and I've had a huge pleasure of working with Ben and Beck for many years now, actually, in the lead up to this moment where we're working on your third CSF raise, which is going to be launching in the private deal room next week. It's come up really, really fast, guys, and I'm really, really thrilled that we're here. So for everybody who's attending here today, I really just want to highlight that we have an agenda to get through. We'd love to do a quick presentation that gives a really good insight into the background of the business, where it's been, where it's going, and what the future looks like as a shareholder. And then we're going to open it up to a Q&A at the end. So for everybody who is here, we're going to give as much of an opportunity as possible for all of you to have your questions answered, and we'd love to do that in the Q&A feature. So please don't hesitate to drop your questions in the Q&A box throughout the presentation as we're going through it, which will probably take around about 15 to 20 minutes, and then the rest of the time is open for questions. Beck and Ben, I would love to throw over to both of you to quickly introduce yourselves before we get started.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Robbie. So I'm Ben, my sister Rebecca. We are the People's Plant. Our cousin Tim is also an important part of our People's Plant journey, and I just wanted to mention him as well, but he just isn't able to join us today.
All right.
Fantastic. And Beck?
Hi, I'm Beck, Ben's sister, and we've been on this journey together for quite some years now. And so we're really excited about the stage that we're at, and we're excited to tell you all about it and to hopefully ask you if you would like to join our journey with us. All right, ready to go.
Fantastic, guys. Well, look, we're really looking forward to today's session, and we really want to make sure that we cover off as many questions as possible. For everybody who's here, you've probably, well, we imagine 99% of you have submitted an EOI. If you haven't, we will send you a link so you can do so, and then you can gain early access to the investment offer that is launching next week on Tuesday, in fact. Now, Ben and Beck, I'm going to hand over to you both to share your screen and run through those slides and go through all what makes the People's Plant and what the future of the business looks like.
All right, so I just wanted to give a short presentation on the People's Plant. So the People's Plant is something that's very close and dear to our hearts. It's something that we've been working on for quite some time now. My background personally is a medical herbalist, a naturopath, and I was actually running a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center when medical cannabis became legal. And I saw that as an amazing opportunity. It's actually something that would help the addiction recovery sector enormously. And I believe it is now starting to integrate into that sector. But I transitioned from the recovery phase of that to actually opening up the whole gambit of what medicinal cannabis can be helpful and useful for people. So today I'd like to just talk a little bit about our journey and where we've come from and where we're going. So what we originally saw is this structural gap in the industry as it's starting to develop. In Australia, it kicked off fairly early and it started from nothing, as a new industry obviously does. And to get that industry going, there was no cultivation at all in Australia. So it was initially imported. Everything was imported from the first day. And then as time progressed, it's been going for about 10 years now. A few cultivators have definitely started and entered into the sector, but the sector has grown so quickly that it couldn't meet the demand. So that demand was met with imports. So as the Australian medicinal cannabis sector is maturing more and more and more, the domestic supply has not been able to keep up with the demand. And that's the issue that we really see, is that there's this amazing opportunity for Australian cultivators to step up and enter into this amazing new industry that's a global phenomenon and contribute what we have. And for all of those that are in the agricultural sector or in the medical herbalist sector, you would know that we have an amazing capacity to offer something on a global stage. That Australia has a very clean and green image, and it has amazing environmental attributes, and it has an amazing and very strong skill set in the agriculture and horticultural sectors. So what we're wanting to do is we've put all those things together and created something quite special that we want to contribute to this sector on a domestic level and also on a global level. So fundamentally, the demand is growing and the local supply isn't meeting that demand. We're wanting to help to contribute to meet to that local demand. And what we've sort of seen is there was actually a bit of a opportunity to lean on the advantages that Australia has to offer. Generally, in the medicinal cannabis sector, there's a conventional method of growing, and that's largely been adopted from environments that are very different from Australia, such as Canada. Canada was a very early mover, and it's obviously a very cold environment. So certain qualities just don't support the natural growth of medicinal cannabis in Canada. Like it's obviously too cold in winter, for example. So as a result of that, they need to start to create, they need to start to manipulate the environment and create artificial environments so that they can grow the plant there. We don't need to do that in Australia. In the early days, they often got a consultation and they got a lot of the designs from the Canadian facilities and superimposed that here in Australia. And it was not a requirement. Like indoor growing seems to me to be somewhat unnecessary when the plant thrives in its natural environment here. So if you've got a wonderful plant that grows well, why would you then create an artificial environment that's quite similar to outside, but uses a massive amount of electricity to do so? And that's what we're wanting to take out of the equation, is that high consumption of electricity. So that high consumption of electricity comes either by manipulating the temperature of the air, manipulating the humidity in the air. So if you have an indoor environment or you're creating light, so the lighting is the massive consumer of electricity indoor. And then if you go into a greenhouse, it's actually air conditioning and heating and dehumidification. They're the things that cost all the electricity. So we've developed a very streamlined system so it's as minimalistic as possible for the input of electricity. And that's what we call the OptiGrow solution. So in our way of growing, we lean on the natural attributes as much as possible so that we're not consuming electricity when we don't need to. We're able at our latitude, because the day length in summer and winter are close enough together that it flowers all year round. So in the middle of winter, it's about 11 hours of light outdoors. In the middle of summer, it's about 12 and a half to 13, a little bit less than 13 hours of daylight outside. So that's suitable to hold flowering of a medicinal cannabis plant. So what we do, we extend the day length in a greenhouse through mostly through daylight, and then just minimalistically very light lighting to extend it another 16 hours in the evening. So it's under light for 18 hours, only for 2 weeks, and then we put it outside every 2 weeks. So we've got staged crops. What we identified as the biggest risk of an outdoor grow is usually it's only for one crop per year. So if you had one crop outside in a year and you had a detrimental weather event in that time, you've lost your entire year's supply. So we needed to mitigate as much risk as possible, make the cost of growing it as efficient as possible. And we sort of navigated a very, very fine path through all of these different qualities, all these different methodologies, so that we're actually adopting from lots of different types of growing and put them all together to form a very low risk, very high efficient production model. So it's perpetual harvest sun grown, which I have actually never seen anywhere in the world. So to my knowledge, I think there may be small grows, maybe in the illegal market, but as far as my knowledge, I've never seen a legal commercial medicinal cannabis cultivation, or in other countries, a recreational cannabis cultivation done in this way. So we've scaled it and it's now ready for commercialization. We've been working for 6 years, ironing all the kinks out, so that we've got it to a point where it's incredibly cost effective and incredibly as little risk as absolutely possible. And we can produce all year round in our latitude. So in a nutshell, that's our OptiGrow solution. It's something that is very unique. It only belongs to us. And it's something that I imagine people will try to copy in the future. But we have a massive advantage. You know, we're way ahead of the game. With the 6 years of R&D, and we've locked in genetics that will actually support this methodology of growing, we're really ready for commercialization. So as we come to that point of commercialization, we've built in stages. As Robbie first mentioned, we've done 2 raises before this raise. Our first raise, we built the insect exclusion netting and the greenhouse for vegetation. Our second raise, we built all the structures for our post-harvest activities. So that's the drying rooms, the trimming rooms. We're licensed also to produce bubble hash and fresh frozen live rosin. So we'll be doing rosin pressing. So we will be able to do the cleanest extracts that is possible here in the medicinal market anywhere in the world. And we would like to offer that to the Australian population. So there's a couple of things that we're right on the cutting edge of, and we're quite excited about. But where we are in our infrastructure journey and where we are in our raising journey is we've done two raises, and we're now at number 3. And that third one is to fit everything off. So we built all the structures, and now it's just to finalize all the walls and all the equipment, the security, the electricity, and the irrigation. So all the infrastructure that joins it all together and makes it happen, brings it to life. So we are now just at the stage of bringing this whole project to life. So that's an amazing time for people to come and join us on our journey, because we're just about to jump into commercial production and enter into the market. So I'd like to now open the discussion for Beck to take over.
It's hard with Ben because he does a really good job of explaining what we've been doing here for the long time. But to give you more background, we've got 2 business models that we'll be working on. One is going to be B2B wholesale, and the other one is to have our own brand, The People's Plant. And so that will be products going directly it will be available for doctors to prescribe with our own brand on it. So, but behind that, we will have B2B wholesale, and we've had a lot of visitors come out to see our facility already while we're under construction, and they're very excited about what we're doing. They understand what Ben's trying to achieve, and they're backing us. They're saying, yes, we want your product. We've seen what you're going to do. We've seen what you're capable of. Get in the market and we'll take it. So it's really exciting. And even this morning, Ben had a meeting with somebody who's very interested to become an off-take. So it's a constant project for us to increase and improve and to always try to expand our network. So the leadership and governance. So there are 3 founders. So we have Ben, who 30 years medicinal herbalism and cultivation experience. I come from an education background, so I'm very familiar with governance and regulatory oversight. I've written programs, I've implemented programs in that environment. So to transfer that across to something in a new system like this is really challenging, but it's something within my field of I can do this. So it's good. And Tim, our cousin, commercial and governance depth. He's a business owner. He's had several businesses in his time, and he's done exceptionally well. So he really helps us with looking over our governance and everything else like that, making sure that we're doing everything the right way. And he has a network, a very strong network of professionals that he also brings to the table. So we're a pretty good team together, and it's working. So why now? The infrastructure is really substantially there. There's only a little bit still to go, and it's that final processing rooms that really need to be fitted out, and all the final little bits of electricity and all the things with the irrigation just need to be finalised. The market is shifting towards local supply. That's something that we hear all the time. People are really interested in Australian product, but they can't get their hands on it. So it's coming from B2B wholesalers that we talk to, but also when we have conversations with pharmacists and doctors, which are also in our network, they're also saying that their patients are asking about Australian product and they're having trouble getting hold of it. So our goal is, if everything goes well, production should be starting from the end of this year. To do that, we finish our build, then we apply for our permit. We already have our license, so we're licensed to grow up to 9.5 tons a year and to do the extraction that Ben was talking about before. But once you've completed your build, then the Office of Drug Control comes out, looks at what you've done, and says, yes, you have completed it as per your license, and then we receive our permit to get into production. So we're hoping that that will be by the end of this year, which is a really exciting achievement. Sorry, next screen. So it's all about finishing what we started. That's really what we're reaching out to people if they would like to join us. We've had 2 successful raises so far. We've got a huge investor base behind us, but we've also got a huge community across social media and across direct emails as well, in the thousands. Like, we've got over 13,000 on social media, over 6,000 direct emails with people. So our community is huge, and we reach out to them consistently and constantly with information. So we've raised $4.5 million to date. So we're serious. People see the value in what we're trying to achieve here, and they want to join us. So for 6 years we've been at it. We're actually really close to 7 years, I think, in April, but we're still at 6 at the moment. So we've been working really hard at this for a very, very long time. So we're just putting the final touches on our infrastructure, and we'll be ready to get into commercial production. So we're just asking if people would like to join us to help us finish what we've started. And that's it. So we would like to open it up for Robbie, I believe, to lead us through some questions. Is there anything else you
Thanks
want to say?
so
Yeah, I think that's
No, that's
it.
good.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you so much, both. That's a really great potted history into the business and the research that you have done to date to really put yourselves in a very unique position to take advantage of the movement towards Australian grown product for the end consumer who really demands it in this market as it is starting to mature, like you've said. We not only had a number of questions even come through directly to us, but we've already got 24 open questions here. So we're going to do our very best to get through these in as much detail as possible to ensure that we leave this webinar with everybody really satisfied with the information that's been provided. So kicking things off, I'll ask the first question here from Michael. The original case suggested that the People's Plant would have a price advantage to imported product. Has this differential changed, if anything, since then? And the original business case suggested you would be able to produce better quality products than imported. Has this changed? Is the gap in quality the same, closer, larger? Over the years, you must have seen a lot.
Good question. I
Yeah.
like Ben do that one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good question. That's
Yeah.
that's an educated question. So, as far as price compression, it has changed over the last 3 years. It has changed considerably. I still stand by our modeling. We will be able to thrive and still compete with the most competitive markets that are currently being imported into Australia. So
Yeah.
we'll be able to stand quite on our own feet without any subsidies from the government or anything like that.
Okay.
Price wise, we'll be fine. The quality has improved. It depends. It's very mixed though from overseas. I've been talking to a lot of people lately, and quite a lot of them are very dissatisfied with their current medicine. Probably the thing I hear most is that it's kind of old. Like, it may be a number of years old by the time it actually makes it to the end consumer or the patient.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest differentiating point, is that it'll be fresh. It's the same. You go to Woolies, do you buy the old shriveled apple in the corner? If you had a choice, or do you
Yeah.
buy the fresh glowing one in the center stage? You'd buy the fresh one.
That says Australian made.
That says Australia. Great Australia. Yeah. Like, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. We've just got to get in the market. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And there's a couple of questions here, one from Gavin and one from Jason, but the answer will cover both. So Gavin's asked, when, how, and how much can I invest? And then Jason's asked, okay, so a private investor is capped at $10,000. So, when can you invest? If you've expressed interest to invest, the investment offer is opening on Tuesday next week on March 10th. And if you're on the EOI list, we will email you the day before and we will email you as soon as it opens with the link to access it and go ahead and review the offer document and the risk warning. As for how much you can invest, that depends on what type of investor you are. Retail investors, everyday investors can invest up to $10,000 every 12 months in every offer. And so there is, depending on if you've invested in the last round, potentially something to consider there. However, for most people, they will be retail investors who can invest up to $10,000. To invest more than $10,000, you will need to have a wholesale investor certificate, which means you'll need to have 250,000 in income over the last 2 financial years or $2.5 million in assets as verified by an accountant. Did that cover everything, guys?
It did. It's not our law.
Yeah,
That's
no,
probably
of
the only
course not.
thing.
No, no, of course not. And the next question is anonymous, but please explain the embedded IP. I'm sure we could cover this for a long, long time. So,
Yeah, so being IP, I won't like lay it out on the table for you, but what that does, it basically enables us to produce all year round outdoors in the sun. Like that's the key is using the natural environment as much as absolutely possible because it costs nothing. Um, and to be able to do it in a perpetual harvest manner. They're
yeah,
the two things. Like if you are familiar with growing, if you think of a perpetual harvest model, you think about sun grown. We've put those together. That's the IP.
great, great. And just below here, Anthony's asked, will the slides be shared? Yes, it is being recorded. And so the slides will be shared for everybody here. And then Jason below has asked, when will the ASX list day be? ASX
Oh,
list day be, sorry.
that's an exciting idea. I think we have to be careful about making promises, but it's
Yep.
definitely something on our radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's many things that we need to achieve before we would
Yeah.
go to a listing on the Australian stock market.
Yeah.
It is something that we would aspire to do, but it's certainly not a small undertaking. That's a significant undertaking that we would like to aspire to,
Yeah.
but it's not something that's going to happen in the short-term future.
A perfectly balanced answer. And obviously, it goes without saying the funds that are going to be invested into this raise are going to be used to grow the business.
Yes.
That's
That's
it's as simple as that. So you really should see it as a long-term investment, and it's an illiquid one at that as well. Um, Ardo has asked, what about the impact of significant weather events?
Yes. So that's part of the OptiGrow system is to mitigate as much risk as possible.
Mm,
So we've created certain measures where we've considered the risk is simply is unacceptable. So for an example, if we were planting directly in the native soil, like just in the field, um, we consider that an unacceptable risk because over time we will build up a pathogen base that will pretty much affect medicinal cannabis. Like it
yeah.
will. So you would be breeding up pathogens for that particular plant because you're doing a monocrop. So we decided that it was unacceptable to be in the ground. So then we came up out of the ground into pots. That's an example of many, many things that we go, okay, this is an acceptable risk. This is unacceptable. Um, so it was simply an unacceptable risk to have one harvest out a year. So one harvest in a year, if you had the terrible weather, it's a done deal. So some of the things that we've done to mitigate those risks of weather is we're looking at covering the plant, not in a greenhouse though. Another name for a greenhouse is also a hothouse. So we don't want more heat. We're a subtropical environment. So a greenhouse is not the way to grow in our particular latitude.
Yeah.
But we have worked on different ways of keeping the moisture off the plant. We've also worked out ways of artificially creating wind because it only uses a very small amount of power. There are certain things that we've done to mitigate the risk, and then other things that we just simply say, well, if we have a massive cyclone come through, there are certain strains that will be able to handle it. There may be other certain strains that we just simply say, okay, we harvest these early and they go into solventless extraction processing. So they won't be of a quality for finished flour, but they would be suitable for extraction. And we'd harvest those early. So we have different mitigation risks depending on the weather event and depending on the year and depending on the strain types. Um, but yes, it is something that we've put a considerable amount of effort and thought and time into navigating.
And we had a
Yeah.
practice cyclone last year, so we
Yeah.
did quite well in that event as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's as we've developed our genetics, we've certainly selected for things that thrive in our particular geographical location. That's that will be our signature as well. So there will be a certain bouquet in the terpenes and the flavonoids and the alkaloids, all the different chemistry within the plant that makes it suitable to adapt to our environment. And
Mm.
similar to wine, there will be regions that grow different wines better than others. We will be a region that will exemplify a very specific type of medicinal cannabis for years to come, and it will be known for that in this region. Whereas maybe in the south, in Tasmania, it's a very different environment. It's a very different region. It will have its own unique bouquet of flavors and smells and whatever else.
Mm.
So as the market matures and people start to develop a more refined palate and very specific medicinal requirements, different regions will highlight these different qualities more and more.
Yeah, fantastic. What a thorough, well thought out plan to potential events that are outside of your control, that you can only do so much with. And yeah, very, very insightful on the different regions as well, as to what kind of product you can actually produce. No doubt you can spend all day talking about that and the different temperatures and fluctuations of them. Alex has asked around how he can access the timeline for the company through to selling and what are your distribution plans. We touched a little bit on the history, what you've used the existing funds to do and the infrastructure that you've built and the point of difference that you have, the research that you've done, 6 years of R&D, now to have the OptiGrow solution. Your distribution plans, you've got that 9.5 tons of offtake agreements in place. It sounds like when I mean, you've already capped out in terms of demand. Demand is continuing to come from the market, and it's a license and infrastructure limitation then as to what you can do to continue to grow. But maybe we can talk a little bit more about your distribution plans, your sort of your B2B plan, and your direct to market through the People's Plant product in a bit more detail, so we can understand what the next few years looks like in terms of the distribution strategy.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So it's quite interesting. In our model, we can really grow to demand. Like if
Yeah,
you have a single big greenhouse, you
yeah,
can't air condition a quarter of it. You have to air condition the entire thing. So a lot of those models where it's a big greenhouse or a big indoor grow, they're very restricted as to being able to fluctuate to meet the demand. Whereas we're growing outdoors, we don't have that limitation. We can actually narrow if we need to meet demand and sort of get smaller, we can actually reduce the grow or we can expand the grow. So
yeah,
that breathing process is actually one of the strengths that we have. We can
yeah,
really meet the demand. The distribution, as we are meeting that demand, our intention is to actually put a label on the market, the People's Plant label. We will do that through a particular chain of pharmacies we're looking at. We've actually developed a preliminary relationship that we're in discussions with
great.
to allow people to access those products
Yeah,
through pharmacies. So that's sort of already getting ironed out. The B2B sales, we have we've got a couple of big ones and then a number of smaller ones that are more domestic, where we will simply provide them with flour and finished flour that they will then put under their own label. And then they will use their already existing networks for distribution. So I anticipate the B2B to go quicker in the beginning. And then as time passes, we will slowly build up our own brand. And
Yeah.
that twin approach of going wholesale as well as retail, I think just sort of covers our risk a little bit more. We have preliminary discussions as well with distribution through Europe at the moment, which is quite exciting because it's a fairly new market. It's growing quite quickly, and there is seen to be quite a few opportunities over there. There are new markets starting to open up. France is now starting to open up. They're going past their pilot project. They're not looking at flour production, but more what's considered 2.0 products. So they're your solventless extracts, your rosins, your gummies, your edibles, that sort of thing. So that's something that we're focusing on at the moment. Is new and emerging markets, and because we're licensed to do both finished flour as well as extracts, pure
Yeah.
clean extracts, we're sort of looking at those opportunities as they arise. And we
Yeah.
anticipate that will just keep going for quite some time yet. The world is on a global scale, it's very early days.
Robbie, actually, there's one thing too, Ben. Can you explain to people about how, if a B2B partner comes in and has a particular strain that they would like us to grow, how we're going to address that? I think that's really
Yeah.
interesting as well.
Okay. So because we're doing our own in-house breeding, we already have many strains. So if someone does want us to grow their strain, then obviously that's just reserved for them. But if they also don't have their own genetics, we would invite them into the facility and they can then choose from our library. Okay, I love that particular strain, and then we would reserve that only to cultivate for that particular brand, so that you don't have
Yeah.
multiple brands selling the
Yeah.
same product.
Yeah.
That's currently what's flooding the market. Is it'll be the same flour in about three, four, five, six different jars. The only difference is the price, and that's
Yeah.
all they've got to change. Is how low can they go, and because of that, there's no differentiation. So we will always create that differentiated product for our B2B customers, and that's a point of difference that I think, yeah, it's not common at this stage in the market that we can actually really look after people. That's the
Yeah.
whole plan, is that we can really do individualized care.
Mm. And I mean, such a detailed and thorough response. I love it. I'm conscious that we've got 40 open questions,
So,
and we'll try our very best to give as much detail as we can while also satisfying these questions. I can see there's a few duplicates in terms of the questions that are being asked here, but I'm hoping we'll cover off pretty much every possible angle. But I will, in some ways, cherry pick just so we can continue certain parts of the conversation. So, are you wanting to price lower than importing competitors?
Yeah, I'll just keep getting
all
them.
right.
Yeah,
Are they talking about on a wholesale or a retail level?
maybe
So
we can cover off both. Yeah,
if they're talking about wholesale, currently what's happening is there's pricing all over the place. There
yeah,
are a lot of new companies coming up from Thailand at the moment,
yeah,
and some of those companies are selling below cost. So they're really struggling. I think in the next 6 months things are going to change a lot again. The industry is a very dynamic industry.
Mm.
Um, we can compete with them. I don't think we will necessarily need to compete with them. This will depend on how the market reacts. We will enter the market and we'll see how it responds, basically. And
yeah,
we just have so much margin in it that we can compete if required.
yeah,
Though I don't think our product will be considered this on the same level as
yeah.
as such like a tiny import or something like that.
Yeah, no, understood, understood. And then what protections of IP have you taken out to stop copycats once you've launched? Let's talk about the OptiGrow solution. How much, in terms like how many years it's taken to get this method finalized for scale, I think is your key point. And maybe we can answer why nobody else in the world is doing the OptiGrow solution as a method of growing.
Yeah. So what protection do we have? So probably the biggest protection we have is our experience and our genetics.
Yeah,
So we know we know we know the pitfalls. We've
yeah,
done it. We've made a million tiny mistakes rather than a million big mistakes.
yeah,
You normally only get to make a couple of big ones. Whereas we've made a lot of little ones in the R&D process before we
mm,
commercialize, so we don't make the big ones. Um,
yeah,
that that's kind of common sense. Whereas that's not what I've seen happen. A lot of people have gone big and then they go, "Oops."
yeah,
So we've sort of hopefully made a lot of those mistakes. What protects us? It really is our genetics and our knowledge. Why haven't people done a similar system? I think it's largely the large push into the industry, the development, the mature markets are all done
yeah,
in Northern Hemisphere, like mostly America, Canada. That's really where a lot of the development is done
mm,
so far in the world,
yeah,
and it's just not an option. Their environments
yeah,
don't support it. So you need
mm,
to be in an environment that allows it to happen, even in Australia, any further south than here, and it's not really going to work. So
right,
I could even be quite open and talk to my fellow competitors in Tasmania, saying, talk to them all about how we do things in our IP, and it's of no use to them because they can't copy it down there. So
yeah,
it's very
yeah,
important the latitude. It's very important the genetics. Yeah, and then there's there's definitely nuances that, and I'm actually developing a 2.0, which is going to refine the system even more. So we're starting with our 1.0, OptiGrow 1.0, but I've been working on for about 6 months OptiGrow 2.0, which is going to reduce the cost tenfold again. It's going to
wow,
massively so make it so much more efficient.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah. So I'm already pre-staging stage
yeah,
two
yeah.
in our IP. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. And we'll just try our best to fly through some of these questions as
Okay.
quickly as we can. No, 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 no. I'm really enjoying the answers, and I'm sure everybody is. But we'll do our best to try and answer as many questions as we can. Anne here is asked, are there any potential predators apart from human that could annihilate the crop, and how would you propose to treat it?
100%. Sorry,
No,
Beth.
no.
Caterpillars are our nemesis.
Yeah,
Caterpillars would devastate the
yeah,
crop.
yeah,
And for us, it's a non-negotiable because you can't use chemical or anything like that. We have to do an insect exclusion netting.
yeah,
Um, so that netting is a physical barrier that stops moths coming in and laying eggs. Those
yeah,
eggs turn into
yeah,
caterpillars. Those caterpillars, there's 6 caterpillars that will affect our crop in our area. There's one, Helios. It's a little nasty caterpillar that goes up to the top of your flower and goes straight down the stem and
yeah,
destroys the lot. It's devastating. So
yeah,
yeah, there's some pretty nasty predators.
yeah.
And insect exclusion netting is the solution.
Great, great. And Kevin here has asked, please tell us how our shares will be affected through these capital raising efforts. If you're an existing shareholder, your shares will be diluted equally in proportion to the number of shares in which you own and the percentage of the company in which you own to make way for more equity in the business. So effectively, that will all be disclosed in the offer document next week, where you can see the company valuation, you can see the new share price. And of course, if there is an uptick in that share price, and then you can calculate your new shares after dilution, that will be the new basically value of your shares, still illiquid, that you will obtain, you will have, that will remain in the business. There's a bit of calculation to do, but there is a really cool tool called pre-money calculator, the Omni pre-money calculator online that you can use to very nicely and easily work out your shares that you still own in the business. Somebody here has asked, can you name any of your offtake partners?
Um, Yeah, so I don't. Yeah, so there's ones that are fairly well known. Like so we've been in quite a for many years. We've been in discussions with ANTG, Cantech, Rural Bioscience,
Yeah,
Medibiz. Yeah, what other ones are there?
Quite a few.
Yeah, Pangaea.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a number of them. I actually was walking around the exhibition in the
yeah,
conference in the weekend. There was another one over in West Australia. His name's Maui, I think it is. I've got a list of people that are quite interested. Now the industry is starting to get to live rosins. Um, that's a whole new wave of interest that we've had from that. So I've been in discussions
yeah,
with about three different people that are very, very interested in getting their hands on some fresh frozen live rosin when it's available.
yeah, yeah. Fantastic, fantastic. And Anna here says, I know very little about the portion of the plant that is used. Just wondering if it requires fertilization at all, and whether cross-pollination, windborne or bees will be a problem. As you mentioned, you had the genetic base to grow.
Good question.
Yeah, good question.
Detail.
Yeah, so we work only with clones. Well, we do breeding and all that sort of stuff, but that's all done in chambers so that the pollen doesn't do whatever it wants to do anywhere it wants. We control the pollen.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's not a free for all. Um, yeah, yeah. So we only work with female plants
yeah, great, fantastic. And
unless choosing to work with a male. Yep,
great.
it's very deliberate.
Yeah, fantastic. And how confident are you that the government regulations will remain consistent and allow you to continue production?
That's a good one, actually.
So talk
I
about
might be able to handle
okay.
that one.
Okay.
The regulations remaining consistent. At the moment, conversations are not really even looking at cultivators at all. There are so few cultivators in Australia. They're certainly not looking at clamping down on cultivation. I think there's much more discussion happening at the other end of the chain with the doctors and clinics and things like that.
Yeah,
Changes in the Australian government, we're hoping that actually there will become a preference for Australian grown. That's what we're hoping for, and that the Australian government starts to support us even more as Australian growers. So even the growers all together, we put together petitions and letters and things like that to the regulators as well. So we're quite a united body, even though we're a tiny body. We are united on wanting preference for Australian growers, which we all should want, I think, in Australia.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
dissimilar to other
Yeah.
agricultural industries.
Yes.
yeah,
We're
fantastic.
not asking for preferential treatment. We're just asking to be acknowledged, I think, as a desirable.
Well, actually, just to be on a level playing field.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
yeah,
all.
great, great. And Kevin here has asked, how easy is it to expand the tonnage? You are licensed for 9.5 tons, assuming you get the final approval. So you've got the license, but then you need the permit. No, you've got the permit, but you need the license,
Other way,
which
we've got the
no, other way
license.
around.
We
You've
need
got the
permit.
license, but you need the permit to grow.
Yep.
You've got the license for 9.5 tons. How hard is it to then get a license for double that, triple that, quadruple
That's
that?
part of stage two.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's an amendment. So I think once you develop a relationship with the ODC and
yeah,
they see you've got some runs on the board, everything's
yeah,
compliant, anyone can, any license producer just simply submits an amendment to their license.
yeah,
So we would submit an amendment to expand our footprint, our growing footprint.
yeah,
And it's just a simple process. They come back with all their questions on
sure,
security and
sure.
risk diversion to make sure that's mitigated as much as possible.
Yeah,
And if you satisfy all those requirements, which we have done for our stage one, we would
yeah.
have to do the same for stage two. Then there's no reason for it not to progress.
Yeah, great, fantastic. And actually, in that respect, you're not limited by the space that you're in right now,
No.
really,
No.
in any way. Okay, so it's really just a regulatory, and as far as
Yes.
the commercials are concerned, you've got distribution networks there. They're knocking on your door, but you need to be able to grow. And that's just going to come down to funding and legalities and making sure that you actually have the license to do that.
Very much. If we
Yeah,
actually our initial license was for 28 ton, I think it was.
yeah,
And it just required such a big capital expenditure at the beginning
Yeah.
Yep.
that it was worth us reducing our tonnage, reducing the whole footprint so
Yep.
that it was less capital expenditure at the start, which is exactly what we're going through right now,
Yep.
to make it more achievable to actually get going. The biggest
Yep.
step for us is to get in market, get going, meet
Mhm.
demand, get a feel for the
Yep.
commercial environment, and then grow.
Yeah.
Step
Fantastic.
one before step two.
Fantastic. And Dan here has asked, what will the initial crop size be? I'll answer the second question, which is what percentage of the business does this capital raise represent? That's going to be disclosed in the offer document next week. Please submit an EOI so you can gain early access to that. Over to you guys for the first question. What will the initial crop size be?
Uh, so we will probably start relatively small. Like our stage one has a footprint of 9.5 ton annual production. So
Yep.
this is approximately 300 kilos of dried flour every 2 weeks. Yeah, so it's either 300 kilos of dried flour or about 12 kilos of bubble hash or about 8 liters of rosin, depending on the strains and the yield
Mhm.
capacity.
Mhm.
But they're kind of the basic numbers. So think of that 300 kilos, so or 1.2 ton of fresh. So if we
Yeah.
do a harvest of 1,200 plants, that's about 1.2 ton of fresh that would go in the freezer that would then
Yeah.
be processed, or it depends on the stream that we're working on at the moment, which
Yeah.
depends on the demand.
I think,
Yeah.
yes, Ben just hit it there. I think a lot of it depends on demand. And as he mentioned earlier, we will scale at as demand requires.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And Jason here has asked, oh, sorry, Ben, did you have a
Oh, no, no, I was just agreeing.
great. Jason here has asked, as a mom and dad investor who would like to help uh, and would like to put in up to $10,000, what is the advantage to us and you?
Oh, so you're probably talking about investor rewards, I'm guessing.
I believe the advantage is around what the individual investor is obtaining shares in the company before you've
Yes.
commercialized. So at this stage, you've got a lot of the infrastructure in place. You've got offtake agreements. You've got distribution networks that are growing in terms of potential purchase orders further down the line. You've got a lot that you've done from a research standpoint as a business. The advantage there is the potential future. Of course, there are risks to that, which are explained very well in the offer document. But I believe that they're just sort of maybe asking about what the potential advantages are for coming on board as a shareholder at this point in time.
Well, I think if we're talking big picture about the company,
Yeah,
there are so many different outcomes that can happen, and so definitely part of our plan is to have dividends, but they are future looking, and so we can't guarantee, we can't promise, but we can definitely say that we. I don't know, can we say we intend? I
yeah,
don't know if that's a safe word to use, but it's
yeah,
definitely part of our intention to
yeah,
look at dividends for our shareholders because all shareholders are equal. We all have exactly the same type of shares. So, founders included, we don't receive any dividends. We don't receive anything out of
yeah,
the company until everybody receives it at the same percentage rate, a
yeah,
portion. So, I think that's hopefully the answer that they're looking
yeah,
for.
yeah.
Okay.
That's great. That's great. And where is most of the import coming from? It's Canada, isn't it? Most of our import.
Canada is definitely the main supplier.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, great. And just below, what are the anticipated returns, if any, for investors? Of course, this is going to be a fairly ambiguous answer, but I'll hand over to you both to just paint a picture of what you might be open to as a company further down the line.
Actually, Robbie, I'm a little bit unsure. Did you understand the
Is
question?
it is it what would the dividends pay out to be?
Apologies. So maybe I'll cover off some of this question.
Yeah.
So, as an investor, you're investing in the company right now. It's the shares will be illiquid. You're buying ordinary shares with voting rights. Essentially, what that means is that you're getting the same rights as everybody else in the company in terms of the share allocation and class that's involved in the business and on the cap table in proportion with the amount that you actually pay in. Now, as far as a potential return is concerned in the future, the company will be open to a number of different options. Like Ben and Beck mentioned, an excess listing could be something that the People's Plan considers much further down the future, but it's not something that any investor should expect. Dividends might be something that the company is potentially open to, but again, we're not going to in any way say, yes, we can pay dividends when the company is not yet generating revenue. The focus is on using the capital to be able to continue building the infrastructure and growing as a business. And it's really, I believe, just about what you would be open to as a company in terms of where you would like to look to provide a potential return for investors, or that you can just say, we're just going to be potentially open to any and all options that come along, and we'll carefully consider ourselves and investors alongside one another.
I think that second answer, Robbie,
Yeah, yeah,
we're not closing the door to anything at this stage. We're an early
yeah,
stage company. We need to keep our mind open. And that's a good part about a board of three. We meet regularly, we discuss everything, and
yeah,
to begin with, quite often things aren't off the table. As long as it aligns with you ethically and morally, I believe that it will be considered. And we're very much the people's
yeah,
plant. We want the best for our investors as well. So we're the
yeah.
people's plant because we care very much about the patients. That's a huge portion of this, but
Mm,
also about our investing community. They're part of our journey and they're part of
yeah,
our consideration at every turn.
yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic.
if I could just add, yeah,
Of course.
it's definitely our intention. We would like to provide dividends. There's actually financial benefits that we genuinely would like to provide our
Mm,
supporters. What you have given us, that support, it's something that we would like to return tenfold
Yeah.
if when and
yeah,
if we can.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah,
yeah, that's just the way it works.
yeah,
We want to
fantastic.
give back. Another option that we haven't sort of spoken about is mergers. It's not an
Yeah,
uncommon thing for consolidation to occur,
of
that
course.
a big conglomerate may want to acquire a cultivation arm or something of that nature. That sort of
Mm,
thing
mm,
is possible as well. There's a fair few different ways that it may play out, and I could imagine we would be a very attractive acquisition if we're able to cultivate large quantities of very high quality at a very low cost. I would imagine that would be very attractive to everybody in the industry. Yep.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. And there's a number of questions in here that I really want to make sure that we cover off. What method do you use for extraction? Rick Simpson method, for instance.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Rick Simpson oil, in industry terms, is a crude alcohol extraction. We will be doing a solventless water extraction. So we don't use alcohol, we don't use CO2. It's literally temperature and agitation. So we decrease the temperature to 1 degrees, around 0 degrees. Agitation, we put them in water and move it, and that breaks the trichome head off. So then you're collecting all the trichomes. So water and temperature.
Yep.
It's as clean as it gets.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. And there's a question here. What is the ratio of regular to wholesale investors? That really just depends on the amount that we get from retail versus wholesale investors in this round. There's a mix of both in the expression of interest list. And then do you need to raise a certain amount in this round? That will all be disclosed in the offer document next week, which we will send over as soon as we are live. Do you see your domestic? Who do you see as your domestic competitors? How far behind are they?
That's a good one, actually. I'll hit it on the high level and then Ben will probably go into the details.
Right.
There are a lot of domestic competition, but they're actually collaborators at this stage.
Yeah.
So there's some great things coming out of WA with Canaponics. We met
Yeah.
Rod last week and we're excited for him. We want to see this Australian industry flourish. And so we don't feel threatened. We're just different. We're different from each other and there's room for all of us. So it's a really exciting space to be part of. So do you want to hit more
Yeah.
of that, like details?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would very much like to talk about the same thread. Um, if the Australian cultivators are able to work together as a collaborate in a collaborative manner, um, then I think we have an opportunity to really establish a true, genuine Australian industry that's not dependent on imports. I
Yeah.
think that's probably the first. I wouldn't like to see any other domestic cultivator as a competition at this stage. I would
Yeah.
like to be collaborative in nature
Yeah.
and work
Yeah.
together and try to establish an Australian industry in its own right.
Mm, mm, mm,
There's
mm.
room for us all
Right.
at
Yes,
this stage.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fantastic. And do you have, I believe we've covered off different strains. Do you have a strategy for edibles? And if so, and how will these be produced? This was something you touched on a little bit earlier.
So,
Do
so
you?
those formats,
Yeah.
whether edibles, so yes, so fresh frozen live rosin
Yeah.
is an API or
Yeah.
active pharmaceutical ingredient. Um, so that would then go into gummies. It would then also go
Yeah.
into vape carts. It can
Yeah.
also go into you can. It's called nano emulsion. So it's very, very, very small
Sure.
particles,
Sure.
and that can then be added to beverages. That's something
Yeah.
that I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
Um, with the nano emulsion, it's a very quick uptake. So it would be not dissimilar to within 5 to 10 minutes, you would actually feel the onset. So if
Mm.
you have a infused beverage, you would feel it before you have the second one. It's
Yeah.
maybe a little different from gummies,
Sure.
where the onset might take an hour or something. And people
Yeah.
sometimes do take one, don't feel anything, and take a second and wish they
Yeah.
had.
Gotcha.
So beverages is something that I'm quite interested in, and I'm looking at how to maximize that. And I would love to introduce that into the Australian market.
I just want to add too, though, that we don't actually intend to do the manufacturing ourselves at this stage. We have partnerships who will be able to handle that because that's a
Yeah.
GMP process and
Yeah.
that has a heck of a big capex cost associated with it. So we're eating this elephant one bite at a time, and we're doing what we do very well before we move on to expanding into manufacturing and things like that
Yeah.
on site.
Great. Great.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Australia has at least quite a number of there's three bigger manufacturers that we're in communication with all three of them.
yeah.
Um, yeah, no. Partnering with a
Yeah.
GMP facility is definitely the smart move in
Mm,
early
mm.
stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And Doug here has asked, given the growth stage needs more exposure to light than the maturing stage, how do you control this difference all year round, as stated?
Growth stage needs more light
Exposure
than
to light. I
yes.
believe you did cover off a little bit of details around different seasons and how you've managed that.
Yes, so in that particular situation, we do light extension. So
Yeah.
for the vegetative part of the photo
Yeah.
period, we put it in a
Yeah.
greenhouse and literally black it out and put a very low level light
Yeah.
covering all those plants, and that'll keep it in a vegetative state
Mm.
until we're ready to put it outside. So we can control the size of the plant, the stretch of the plant, all that sort of thing.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, fantastic. And another question here. Efficiency is great, but in other markets, it often comes at the expense of quality versus yield. Where does your product sit on the quality versus yield spectrum? E.g., some high quality strains are slower growing, slower flowering, and therefore are not embraced by growers where the economies of faster growing strains are predominant.
Awesome question.
Yeah.
So I come at this from a medical herbalist perspective. From a medical herbalist perspective, there is a very, very clear differentiation on what quality is. In the black market on cannabis, quality is sometimes perceived as aesthetics, or aesthetics dominates what people perceive as quality. Uh, and that's a subjective thing. Like what is beautiful, you know? So quality is really your therapeutic actions, your active constituents, your CBD, your CBG, your THC, all your terpenes, all your alkaloids, all like that's what creates quality.
Mm.
So we will be able to present a very, very high quality at a very affordable price. It's through the lens of a medical herbalist, not scaling a black market grow.
Yeah.
That's probably the difference.
Yeah, gotcha. And there's a couple of questions here, just down the bottom. If cannabis is legalized here in Australia, like it is in so many states in America, how will that affect your business? What do you see changing in the Australian market?
That actually excites us, the potential of evolution in the market.
Yeah,
So we certainly don't feel threatened by it. It's a little bit like the sourdough analogy. Most people can bake their own bread, but they choose to buy it at the bakery because it's a little bit easier to do so. They may not have the time or the interest, but they want to be able to access cannabis. So
yeah,
we believe that there will always be a market, even if it does become full adult use.
yeah,
We're hoping that because we are well reputable and experienced grower in the market by that time, that we will
yeah,
be looked favourably upon any kind of regulatory restrictions that may be put on the grow. So we're hoping to be able to participate fully if it does open up into a adult use market.
Yeah.
fantastic.
So there's a little bit of crossover between home grow and adult use.
Mm,
Um, we're certainly not against home grow, like,
yeah,
free the weed, but but as Beck said, not everyone's going to do it. And I think it's actually a big therapeutic thing for people to actually grow their own. I
yes.
actually
Yeah,
support that. From a naturopath and a medical herbalist perspective, I think that's a wonderful thing to actually put your hands in the
for sure,
earth.
for sure.
For a recreational market, my intention is to be in market prior to that regulatory shift, so that we will be able to meet the demand that will come out of that. I have very much a perspective of the medical aspect, but it can be adapted to the recreational. They're very, very much similar. Um, so I would like to think that we will be very well positioned to take advantage of any regulatory shift that takes place.
Yeah, great. Just conscious of time here. We only have a few open questions remaining, but I just wanted to remind everybody we are recording today's session. So if you do need to duck out, then you absolutely can. We will send you the recording after this. We'll just go through these final remaining questions as quickly as we can. John here has asked, will the production equipment be fabricated, sourced locally, slash sourced locally, or imported? And do you see any risks with getting production equipment commissioned and running?
That's actually a
Yeah,
good one.
okay, that's a good one. So yeah, that's something that I've been doing a lot of research for quite a long
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
most of the equipment was coming out of North America. China has since overtaken North America with the production of post-harvest equipment. Um, like most things in Australia, it'll probably come out of China,
Yeah.
because simply they're very efficient, they're cost effective, and they're quite good quality stuff. Um, but we haven't dialed that in. Australia, it's not producing anything for
Yeah.
post-harvest at this stage that I'm
Mm,
aware of. There
mm,
might be
mm.
some very small scale bespoke equipment made, but nothing of a commercial standard. So if there was an option, sure, we would definitely consider it. But at the moment, I'm not aware of any real commercial options that are made here in Australia. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be sourcing them internationally.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And Michael here has asked, now you're very close to commercial production. How are you modeling the mix of business between branded, usually high margin, and unbranded bulk lower margin product? This comes down to your sort of direct and then wholesale models.
Yeah.
Well, we're tackling both of those because
Yeah.
very much we will be looking at what orders we have in from our B2B partners. So that will be a portion of what we're growing, and then there will also be a portion of our own product.
Yeah.
And Ben's very low cost of production gives us so much flexibility in being able to present a variety of different products to the market under the People's Plant brand.
Yeah, it is very much the way it's established is we can really dial in demand and production. What I've seen in companies, they really struggle. They'll produce a massive amount because they can only turn it on. They turn it on, and it's big. And they
Yeah.
produce a bunch of one thing, and then they can only sell so much of it, and then they're in trouble. That is something that I don't want to do. We will produce as demand grows. So as we will have our own probably elite stuff that will put under our own brand, and then we will have very much
Yeah.
personalized genetics for other brands that we'll be working with. um, there is a bigger margin to put it under our own retail brand, but
Yeah.
it's limited by how much is moved.
Mm,
So a combination, having 9.5 tons
yeah.
and try to put that through your own brand is not realistic. So that's why we need partnerships with other people in the industry.
Mm, mm,
So it will be a diversification. It also mitigates a little bit of risk as well.
Yeah.
If we
mm,
had one big customer, a
yeah.
big customer, and if something unforeseen happened to that customer, then you're in trouble. So we will
Yeah.
diversify.
Yeah. A bit of an interesting question next here from Cass. Hi, would the growing facility be extended to other farmers in the future? Sort of a contract to set up with the OptiGrow criteria and supply to the people's plant.
Actually, that's a really good one, Cass. I see that coming up a lot on our social media
Yeah,
ads. People are asking,
interesting.
I want to grow this at our place under your model.
Yeah,
But
interesting.
it's very customized to our exact location. So
Yeah,
I'll probably let Ben let you know if that's a realistic situation. The concept is a good one.
Yeah, yeah, like a co-op sort of thing. Be wonderful, but the regulatory environment in which the medicinal cannabis industry exists at this time would make it
yeah, of
prohibitive to do that. Like
Yeah.
course.
the amount of infrastructure that is required to set up a single grow,
Mm,
you would do that as little as absolutely possible. You wouldn't be like multiplying this all over the place. Like I've talked to so many people, oh, I've got 28, I've got 58, I got 100. Um, it's a lot more than just the space.
Yes. So
There's so much more in it. It actually doesn't require a whole lot of space. It just requires a lot of know-how, a lot of technical skill and ability, a lot of capital. Yeah.
I think the thing around that, Cass, is that it's very much a limitation put on the industry by the government. It's not
yeah,
necessarily
yeah,
only by us. It's just not a realistic way to move forward at this time. Yeah,
It may change.
it may change.
It may
Yeah,
change.
yeah.
If it does change, then yeah, we'd be
yeah.
quite open.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Great. And just finally, actually, a question here from James. Are you going to try and cover all terpene profiles to cover the most ailments? And what is proposed for the vegetative waste?
Yeah, good one.
Yeah, okay. Terpene profiles. So covering most terpene profiles. Generally, the industry at this point in time has upregulating and downregulating. Upregulating, they call that daytime. Downregulating, they call that nighttime. So they have very, very basic two, two sort of profiles.
Mm, mm,
The more familiar listeners would understand that there is a bazillion of varieties. So yes, we will obviously breed many different varieties with many different profiles. That's definitely part of what we already are doing. Second part of that question was,
what is proposed for the vegetative waste?
oh, vegetative waste. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. The whole of plant idea is a wonderful idea, but it doesn't really sort of work in the regulatory environment that we live in. So the regulations require that we dispose of everything that is not used in the medical manufacturing process. So all the stems and the leaves that will be chipped and composted on site. It would be lovely if it was able to be used in a fiber production type model.
Yeah.
We could
yeah,
make heat bricks or something like that, but the regulatory environment doesn't allow that at this time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
We're
Gotcha.
keenly aware of it and we see potential there. So we'll definitely be looking at it.
Yeah, great. And just a very, very final question. What is the minimum investment required?
Yeah, that
Going
one's an
into
easy one. That one's a good one for me.
Okay,
$250. We really
fantastic.
want everyday Australians to be able to afford to be part of our business if they would like to.
Great. That's so good, guys. Well, look, we've answered over 60 questions. I hope everybody here has gained some insights and learned a lot about the business from Beck and Ben. your depth of knowledge of the industry is it really shines through when you speak about the product, the direction that you've gone in, and I think also your predictions from years and years ago sort of coming true as to how the industry is
Yeah.
really trending towards a homegrown solution, and we certainly see that. Throughout this capital raise, where there are just so many people who have basically been highlighting that they've been looking for an end homegrown solution on our back door for years and years because they don't want to be helping to fund these overseas companies, and they know that it's more expensive. And you've done all of this work and developed the OptiGrow method, and really gone out there and kind of built something. It's taken a bit of time, but I think through all of that research and all of the community that you've built up, gotten the People's Plant into a really good position to be able to now take advantage of that industry shift. So I'd love to hand over to you both to just close off and make your final statements. But just before I do, for everybody who's here, I want to thank all of you for the questions and the input. It was really, really interesting to go through all of this with you both today. Beck and Ben, I'll hand over to you guys to close things out today.
I think for me, just it's quite simple. We would really sincerely appreciate the help to complete what we've started. That's my dream is to be able to complete what we've started and to get this product on the market, the People's Plant.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, if I could just finish, I actually have to pinch myself
Yeah.
sometimes. This was a dream that just seemed so big and so hard and so difficult, and we've just
yeah,
not stopped. We've just stuck with it, and I just feel incredibly privileged and incredibly grateful for being entrusted by all that support from the community in Australia and some overseas, but mostly all Australia. Um, I don't know. It's just a really touching, heartwarming privilege to be able to actually lead the charge in this particular little segment of the world. We're trying to bring medicinal cannabis to Australians in a way that is healthy, in a way that is environmentally responsible, and a way that is actually cost effective. We actually want to just bring it to the people and help. And I feel incredibly privileged and grateful for being able to get this far, and we are so close. So I would, obviously a little bit more support would be really appreciated.
yeah.
And I want to, yeah, I want to just say thank you
Thank
once
you.
again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, both. And thank you, everybody here for the session today. We'll send around the recording so you can go back and check any part of it out. But thank you so much for the continued interest. It's been really, really wonderful to see all the comments of, especially a lot of the existing shareholders coming in and still supporting the business. So thank you very much to all of you. And Beck and Ben, thank you for today. Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie. Bye.